At my sister's wedding, her fiancé pointed and proclaimed, "You can stand by the trash. We're out of seats." I surveyed the room and found even his barber got a spot. So I grabbed my gift, smiled, and declared, "Fitting, since that's where this marriage belongs." She came rushing as I proceeded. I, 29M, never thought I'd be writing this, but after what happened at my sister's wedding last weekend, I need to get this off my chest. The whole thing still feels surreal, like I'm living in some twisted family drama that spiraled completely out of control. My sister and I used to be close. Growing up, we had each other's backs through everything. Our parents' messy divorce when I was 15, moving between houses every week, the financial struggles that followed. She was the one person I thought would always have my corner, no matter what. That belief shattered in the most public way possible. The trouble started months before the wedding. When she got engaged to her fiancé, I was genuinely happy for her. He seemed decent enough at first, stable job, treated her well from what I could see. But as the wedding planning ramped up, I started noticing changes in how he interacted with our family. Small things at first. Comments about our modest backgrounds. Jokes about our old car. The way he'd subtly correct our grammar or mannerisms when we were around his friends. I tried talking to my sister about it, but she'd gotten defensive. She told me I was being paranoid, that I just wasn't used to being around someone from his social circle. Her fiancé came from money, real money. His family owned a chain of successful restaurants across 3 states. Mine worked double shifts at a factory to keep the lights on after Dad left. The seating arrangement became a massive issue in the weeks leading up to the wedding. I'd offered to help with planning, figuring families should stick together during stressful times. But every suggestion I made got shot down. When I asked about my +1, I was told there wasn't room. When I asked where I'd be sitting, I got vague responses about still working out the details. 2 days before the wedding, I finally got my answer. My sister called and explained that they'd had to make some difficult decisions about seating due to venue constraints. I'd be at a table near the back with some of the groom's work acquaintances. Not ideal, but I figured I could deal with it for one night. The morning of the wedding, I drove 3 hours to get to the venue. I'd bought them a nice gift, nothing extravagant given my budget, but something meaningful. A vintage photo frame with an engraving of their wedding date, along with a heartfelt card about family and new beginnings. I'd spent more than I probably should have, but she was my sister. The ceremony itself went smoothly. Watching her walk down the aisle brought back memories of us as kids, playing dress-up in Mom's old clothes. For a moment, all the tension from the past few months faded. This was supposed to be about family, about celebrating love. I genuinely hoped they'd be happy together. The reception started well enough. I found my assigned table and introduced myself to the other guests. They seemed nice, a mix of his coworkers and their spouses. We made small talk about work and the weather. I was actually starting to relax when the groom approached our table. He looked around the room briefly, then focused on me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Without any preamble, he pointed toward the corner where the waste bins were stationed and made his announcement. I could stand by the trash since they were out of seats. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked around the table, hoping someone would laugh or indicate this was some kind of joke. Instead, I saw uncomfortable faces looking anywhere but at me. The silence stretched on as I processed what had just happened. I stood up slowly and surveyed the reception hall. That's when the full scope of the humiliation became clear. His barber was seated at a prominent table near the front. His dry cleaner was at another good table with his family. The guy who detailed his car had a spot at the wedding party table. Meanwhile, the bride's brother was being directed to stand next to the garbage. The rage that followed wasn't the explosive kind you see in movies. It was cold and calculating. I walked over to where I'd placed their gift on the present table, picked it up, and returned to where he was still standing. I told him the placement was fitting, since that's where this marriage belonged anyway. The room went dead silent. I could see my sister's face across the hall, her expression shifting from confusion to horror as she realized what was happening. She started moving toward us, her dress rustling as she pushed past other guests. Her fiancé's face had gone red. He started saying something about respect and family, but I was already walking toward the exit. I heard my sister calling my name, her voice getting more desperate as I got closer to the door. She caught up with me in the parking lot, breathing hard from running in her wedding dress. She demanded to know what I thought I was doing, ruining her special day. I explained what her husband had said, and watched her face change as the reality sank in. She tried to defend him at first, saying he was probably just stressed and didn't mean it the way it sounded. But when I described the seating arrangement, how his service providers got better treatment than her own brother, she went quiet. I told her I was leaving, and that when she was ready to remember who her family was, she knew how to find me. Then I got in my car and drove home. Update 1. The fallout started the next morning. My phone was buzzing with texts and missed calls from various family members who'd heard different versions of what happened. Some were angry at me for causing a scene. Others wanted the full story. My sister called that afternoon, crying. She'd apparently confronted her new husband about the seating situation after I left. According to her, he'd admitted that he thought having me prominently seated would look bad to his family and business associates. He'd asked her to put me somewhere less visible, and she'd gone along with it to avoid conflict. The trash comment, she claimed, was him trying to handle an awkward situation poorly. He supposedly felt bad about the seating arrangement and was attempting some kind of misguided joke to deflect attention. I listened to her explanation, but something didn't sit right. The man I'd observed for months didn't seem like someone who made that kind of mistake accidentally. His comment felt calculated, designed to put me in my place publicly. I told her I needed time to process everything. She begged me not to let this destroy our relationship, saying family was more important than one bad moment. Part of me wanted to believe her, but the humiliation was still too fresh. Over the next few days, I started hearing from other family members who'd been at the wedding. My cousin mentioned that she'd overheard some of the groom's family making jokes about our side of the family before the ceremony. Apparently, there had been comments about keeping us separate from their important guests. My aunt, who'd known my sister since she was born, called to tell me she'd never seen her so withdrawn as she was during the reception after I left. She said my sister kept looking toward the door like she was hoping I'd come back. Update 2. A week after the wedding, my sister showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked exhausted, and I could tell she'd been crying. She asked if we could talk, really talk, without either of us getting defensive. What she told me changed everything I thought I knew about the situation. The seating arrangement hadn't been her idea at all. Her husband had presented her with a completed chart and told her it was final. When she'd protested about my placement, he'd told her that his family was funding most of the wedding and he needed to prioritize their comfort. She'd felt trapped between wanting to stand up for me and not wanting to fight with her new husband about money and family politics. She'd convinced herself that one night of awkward seating wasn't worth a major conflict. But the trash comment had been the final straw for her too. She'd realized in that moment that she'd married someone who saw her family as an embarrassment to be managed rather than people to be welcomed. The week following the wedding had been miserable for her. Her husband had shown no remorse about what happened. Instead, he'd told her I was oversensitive and needed to learn how to handle social situations better. He'd suggested that maybe some distance between us would be healthy for their marriage. She'd started seeing her relationship differently after that conversation. Small incidents from their engagement period took on new meaning. The way he'd discouraged her from certain friends. How he'd gradually influenced her style and mannerisms. The subtle ways he'd been reshaping her into someone who fit better with his image. She asked if I could forgive her for not standing up for me sooner. She said she'd been so focused on fitting into his world that she'd lost sight of what really mattered. I told her I understood the position she'd been in, but that the situation had shown me something important about her marriage that worried me. Her husband's behavior wasn't just about class differences or social awkwardness. It showed a fundamental lack of respect for her family and, by extension, for her. Update 3. The real drama started a month later. My sister had been quietly documenting other concerning behaviors from her husband. The way he controlled their finances despite her having her own successful career. How he'd started making decisions about their social calendar without consulting her. The increasing frequency of comments about how she needed to present herself to match his family's expectations. She'd also discovered that his family had been making ongoing jokes about her background. His mother had apparently referred to our side of the family as colorful characters who needed to be managed carefully at family events. The breaking point came when he told her that future family gatherings would need to be carefully curated. He'd suggested that maybe some family members should only be invited to casual events, not formal occasions where his business associates might be present. My sister finally understood what I'd been trying to tell her for months. This wasn't about one bad moment at a wedding. It was about a pattern of behavior that would only get worse over time. She came to me for advice about what to do. Part of her wanted to try counseling, to see if they could work through these issues. But another part of her was realizing that the person she'd married wasn't who she thought he was. I told her I'd support whatever decision she made, but that she needed to think carefully about what kind of future she wanted. Did she want to spend her marriage constantly apologizing for her family and background? Did she want to raise children who might inherit their father's attitude about class and social status? 3 weeks later, she filed for divorce. The marriage had lasted exactly 2 months. The divorce proceedings revealed even more about her husband's character. He tried to claim that she'd misrepresented her family situation when they got engaged, arguing that this constituted grounds for annulment. His lawyer actually submitted evidence about our family's financial status and social background as if it were relevant to the dissolution of their marriage. My sister's lawyer tore apart their arguments easily, but the experience showed her just how vindictive her husband could be when he didn't get his way. Final update. 6 months later, my sister and I are closer than we've been in years. The whole experience, as painful as it was, helped her understand some important things about herself and what she wanted from life. She's back to being the person I grew up with, confident, funny, and fiercely loyal to the people she loves. She got a promotion at work and bought a small house in our hometown, close to the rest of our family. Her ex-husband's behavior during the divorce apparently caused some problems for him too. Word got around his social circle about how he'd treated his wife's family, and several business relationships were affected. Turns out even wealthy people don't like associating with someone who treats others poorly based on their background. My sister learned that some of his friends had been uncomfortable with his comments about our family during the engagement period, but hadn't known how to address it. After the divorce, several people reached out to tell her they were glad she'd gotten away from him. The wedding gift I tried to give them is now sitting on my sister's mantelpiece in her new house. She kept the photo frame, but replaced their wedding photo with a picture of our whole family from last Christmas. She says it reminds her of what really matters. Looking back, I'm glad I stood up for myself that night, even though it caused immediate pain for both of us. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst decisions. My sister needed to see her husband's true character, and unfortunately, it took a public humiliation to make that happen. The whole experience taught us both that family isn't something you should have to apologize for or hide. The right person will love and respect the people who matter to you, not see them as obstacles to be managed. My sister is dating someone new now, a teacher who thinks our family stories are hilarious and fits right in at our loud, chaotic holiday gatherings. She says she's learned to recognize the difference between someone who loves her despite her background and someone who loves her including her background. As for me, I learned that sometimes standing up for yourself means being willing to walk away from situations where you're not valued. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, leaving my sister's wedding like that. But it was also necessary. Some lines can't be crossed without consequences, and respect is non-negotiable, especially when it comes to family. The marriage might have belonged in the trash, but the relationship between my sister and me didn't. Sometimes you have to be willing to burn bridges to save the people you love from crossing them.